This episode of the Microbiome Report is brought to you by drmicrobiome.com and Dr. Mahmoud Ghannoum's new book, Total Gut Balance: Fix Your Microbiome Fast for Complete Digestive Wellness. I'm your host, Andrea Wien, and today we're talking about a favorite pastime, drinking. I'm thrilled to have two guests joining me today, microbiome researcher Dr. Mahmoud Ghannoum and Ruari Fairbairns, founder of 1 Year No Beer, an online challenge to give up drinking for 90 days. Since inception, 1 Year No Beer has helped over 50,000 people in 90 countries transform their relationship with alcohol. This show is especially fun because while Ruari talked about the inception of the company and how his IBS completely vanished when he gave up alcohol, Dr. Ghannoum colored in the details about what's physiologically happening in our guts when we drink. At the end of this episode, stay tuned for 30% off for a 1 Year No Beer challenge. Now, let's get to the show. Ruari, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me on the show. It's great to be here.
To start, I thought you could tell our listeners a bit about your backstory and your company, 1 Year No Beer.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll go back into, not into the dark ages, but close. No, I was born on the west coast of Scotland, an island called the Isle of Mull. Beautiful island, very picturesque, but nothing to do but drink. And no, I didn't start off life drinking, but it was just around me. I really struggled at a young age. I had ADHD, and 6 years old, the choice was counseling or drugs. My parents chose counseling, and I didn't really understand what was going on in my brain, but I knew that I was going to do something. And I wrote a letter to Richard Branson when I was 14 years old, and I said, I'm going to change the world one day, and I'm looking forward to having lunch with you. Now, Richard never responded, so lunch is definitely on him. But at 15, I set off on this adventure, and I left school before the legal age, and I started my first business. By the time I was 25 years old, I'd set up 5 different companies, ranging from a techie startup to a sales outsourcing, all sorts of things. I was desperate to find out what that impact that I knew I was going to have was. Randomly, through the TV program The Apprentice, which, by the way, for the listeners in the US there, we invented that in the UK. Like all good things. No, I'm joking. But through the TV program The Apprentice, I applied for it and it got accepted. And I sat outside for the beginning of the show. And after 4 hours of waiting, the producers came out and said, look, we can't explain it, but you're not going on the show this time. And rather randomly, shortly, a day or two after that, I bumped into an oil broker while I was down in London, and he got me a job as an oil broker. Now, two worlds collided for me, partying and being successful. I'd always been very good at partying, and here as an oil broker, the more I partied, the more successful I was. Now, I originally started as a crude oil broker, and I would be entertaining clients and doing all that stuff, and then I set up the jet desk. And in doing this, I met my wife, and things were starting to wear thin. I had some of these niggling health issues, which I didn't really attribute to alcohol. I just maybe attributed to stress or poor diet. I don't know, things like that. But, and independently, I was seeking a counselor, and I had this IBS that wouldn't go away, and all these sort of things. All the recommendations, my boss told me I was committing commercial suicide. My friends were like, we'll disown you. I almost had to say goodbye to the concept of being a top broker. I had to quit the desire to be the world's top broker, because maybe I thought that was the impact I was here to have, stupidly, to take a break from booze. But I did it. I took a break from alcohol for 90 days, and I cannot believe, I just can't tell you what a difference it made. The weight lifted off. My eyes brightened. I felt happier. I actually went for a full year, and over that year, I went from 28% body fat down to 10.6. I ran a half marathon in 1:34:40. My IBS disappeared. Like, I'd seen doctors. I'd been to Chinese medicine. Nope. All I needed to do was stop drinking. So there were all of these health issues. There were all of these mental health problems. There were all of these things that disappeared just by removing alcohol. And I got together with Andy, who used to work at the same oil broking firm as me. And he'd just done 6 months alcohol free, and he put down his success. I mean, he lost way more weight than I did. He lost 3 stone. And we were like, nobody is talking about the advantages of taking a break from booze. Like, to not drink You need to go and submit yourself to God and admit you're powerless and an addict, or you need to be completely stigmatized, outcast from society. Like, why would you ever do that? And yet here were all these benefits. So we sat down and we said, how do we do this? What do we do? Let's dress it up as a challenge. Think Spartan or Tough Mudder. It's just a challenge. It's cool. You can be proud of it. Talk about it in the pub. Hey, I'm doing this challenge. 28 days, no booze. That's really where we came up with 1 Year No Beer. And we launched it in 2016. When we originally launched it, we gave it all away for free. We were, hoping to reach all across the world. And I don't know about you, but free is not free. Free is very, very expensive. Cut a long story short, it spread all over the world. We had a big following in Brazil, in China, in non-drinking countries. We were like, this is unbelievable. And we started getting letters back, people, a handwritten letter from a son. I'd be reading this stuff out to my wife in bed at night going, oh my God, I can't believe this. Like, look at what this simple thing is doing. It's totally transforming lives. People are losing weight, getting fit. It becomes a platform to transform other areas of their life. So since then, we're now over 50,000 members in 90 countries. When I first started thinking about changing my relationship with alcohol, it actually came through doing Headspace. So I started doing meditation on the train, and this meditation started making me think about alcohol differently. Then I changed my relationship with booze. In 2017, I sent some tweets to journalists. And off the back of it, we got featured on BBC World News in over 200 countries. And a friend of mine called me up and he said, Ruari, what you're doing is amazing. I'm in Italy and I'm meeting the Dalai Lama next week. Would you like to meet him? Wow. Yeah. Let me check my diary. No, I'm joking. So a week later, I sat down with the Dalai Lama and I spent 2 days there. We had breakfast with him in the morning. We stayed outside. None of this stuff should have happened. Like, shifts were going on. And for me, that's when I knew the purpose. That's when I understood all of those things that were going on when I was younger, the letter to Richard Branson, the failed businesses, everything led me to this moment. So I handed in my notice as an oil broker on the Monday morning and I got fully invested into 1 Year No Beer. So now we are very focused on improving our product, improving how we transform people's relationship with alcohol. At the core of what we do is community, but ultimately what we're doing is anyone can not drink, anyone can abstain from alcohol, but we help people to change their relationship with alcohol so that once they come through it, they don't really want to drink as much or at all anymore. And it's not an abstinence program. Press the reset button. So that's what we're up to.
I love that it's not about never drinking again. So my husband and I went on a very similar journey of our own. We lived in Australia for a couple of years. And as you may know, Australians love to drink. And so when we came back, we felt a bit that we just had to dry out. And so we did 6 months, no alcohol. And I think the hardest part was, like you're saying, the expectation or the perception of what it would be versus the actual reality. And sure, like the first few parties or, get-togethers were a little bit awkward or difficult just because you're so used to having that drink in your hand, right? Even if it's just socializing, the first thing someone does when they walk into a bar or a party is go to get a drink. So getting past that mental hurdle, and once that was surpassed, which really didn't take very long, it was quite easy, which is surprising to a lot of people. And I think they feel sometimes guilty about their drinking when you're not drinking. So that also created a little bit of an interesting dynamic, but very surmountable once you're in it.
That's it. There are some very key primal things that are going on. This is why community is so important, because we're brought up all the way through our life. Since we're in nappies, we watch aunties, uncles, friends, parents celebrate, commiserate, congratulate every single opportunity, booze. But also what we're doing is we're demonstrating something really key, and that's tribalism. So the tribalism, our tribe, drinks alcohol. That's what we do. Society does that. Now, if you want to remove yourself from the tribe, well, imagine what would happen back in the day. Like, what? Why are you leaving? What's wrong with you? What's wrong with the tribe? They take it personally and they take it fearfully. Like, why are you changing? And you see that every time, people trying to drag you back into this tribe. And that's why 1 Year No Beer has been so phenomenally successful, is because if you want to remove yourself from a tribe, you have to have a tribe to belong to. And by having a tribe belong to, when you're at the wedding or at that event and somebody says, come on, just have one, you go, no, it's okay. And inside you're not being triggered.
Yeah, absolutely. How long did you think about giving up alcohol for a period of time before you actually did it? You mentioned you'd done some meditation. I'm curious, how long was that process?
I think there was probably 2 years of thinking in the back of my mind, scratching, this is not right. I want to change something. And I'd done dry January a couple of times. So in the UK, that's very popular to not drink in January. And the thing about what we've realized really is when a lot of people try and abstain for a month, what they do is they say, I'm going to abstain for a month. Now, I'm going to go through my diary, cancel all my social engagements. I'm going to avoid all my friends. I won't pick up my phone. I'm going to hide like a hermit. And I'm going to count down the milliseconds until the first of the next month so I can go and get absolutely smashed again. Now, all that does is reaffirm the limiting belief, all that psychological belief that alcohol is pertinent to your life, that you need it to exist. You need it to have fun, to be successful, to relax. But you don't. You don't need it for any of those things. It's a drug. So, that's the biggest part that we help people. We help people to find what they really want, what they're really looking for. Is it relaxation? Is it to unwind and de-stress? Well, there's much better ways than putting ethanol into your body. And I think also I love saying to people, have you ever Googled alcohol? If you Google what is alcohol, it's a colorless, flammable, volatile liquid, also known as ethanol, used as a fuel source. It's like gasoline. Do you see people running around desperate to put gasoline down their throats? No, you don't. It's a mindset shift for people.
Absolutely. So you've kind of brought it up, and we'll switch gears a little bit now and talk to Dr. Ghannoum. You mentioned that you had IBS before you started this whole journey, and by giving up alcohol for even a short period of time, those symptoms abated. They went away. So Dr. Ghannoum, let's talk a bit about what's actually going on. Why is that the case? What's happening in the gut when we drink alcohol? What happens when we take alcohol away?
Well, first, before I start talking about this, I would like to say you had a lovely story. I tell you, being in Scotland and visiting Scotland, and the way, as you say, the tribe in Scotland love to drink, for you to be there and establish what you established is absolutely fantastic. I really appreciate that. I really appreciate that. And I tell you something, I really felt very happy to hear what you said. So now I'll answer you, Andrea, with respect to what happens with alcohol. First of all, studies to look at how alcohol affect the microbiome, which, as you know, it's microorganisms, both bacteria and fungus that live in our gut. They live there and they are imbalanced, and once they are imbalanced, we have really good health. However, studies have shown that when you take alcohol, you cause imbalance. And sometimes this is called dysbiosis. This is the scientific term for imbalance. Now, a lot of these studies, they come from animals as well as humans. If we look at the studies which looked at what alcohol does to you using animals, and as I mentioned, the first thing it does, it causes imbalance or dysbiosis, but also particularly it causes an increase in small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. In other words, increase in the number of bacteria in your gut start to grow beyond control. And this is referred to usually as SIBO, which is again refers to an increase in the growth of microorganisms in your gut, which, as you know, we want something to be well balanced. Having too much of something is always like drinking alcohol. Too much of drinking alcohol has its side effects. And this is what happens in our gut. In particular, when you drink alcohol, studies in animals have shown that it can change the balance by decrease in a phylum called Firmicutes, which is a good guy, sort of. At the same time, we have an increase in another phylum called Protobacteria, and this is the bad guy. And this Protobacteria have been associated with inflammation. So you have underlying inflammation in your system. So you can see easily we are increasing the bug or the microorganisms that cause inflammation, and we are decreasing the good ones at the same time. So what does that mean? When you have this imbalance, what we are having is that we can affect the lining of our gut, where you have to start having a breakage in the barrier. Our intestine is very nicely should be healthy and tight junction, which means it's all very nicely secure. It does not allow things to go into our blood haphazardly. So when you have this overgrowth, you are causing this barrier to break down. And with that, we start to have some issues.
I want to come back to that, but I want to ask, why is that happening? Is the alcohol, is it because it's a toxin? Is it producing some type of byproduct? Is it because it's breaking down into sugars that the proteobacteria like? What is the actual component of alcohol that is causing the issue?
It's very simple. If you think about it, we all go and buy alcohol wipes to kill microorganisms. So obviously, when you have too much alcohol, you are
That's
killing.
A good point.
You are killing very, very simply these organisms. Please go ahead.
No. I mean, you just went over that very quickly, but that's a good point. We buy alcohol wipes. The alcohol wipes are to kill the bacteria. What do you think that does inside your body?
Exactly. You are absolutely right. So what it does, it kills the good bacteria or the beneficial bacteria, as well as the beneficial fungi that make our lining healthy and well. So when you kill the good ones, what's happening, as I mentioned, we have an increase in the bad ones. And that's where the trouble starts happening.
I think I've heard from people too that there was a study done, I think it was in Spain, where they looked at people who had had food poisoning at a wedding, I think it was, and the people who had drank the most actually had the lower incidence of food poisoning. Now, that's not to say that people should be drinking more at a wedding because they might get food poisoning, but it does back up this point of it's killing the bacteria. And so once it gets into the gut, it's maybe being willy-nilly about which ones it's killing and which ones it's not. And because so many people perhaps already have a bit of dysbiosis based on the diet and lifestyle that they may be partaking in, it's just creating an even more hospitable environment for those bad guys.
Absolutely. This is all connected. And as you rightly mentioned, that environment as well as diet in particular could also cause this dysbiosis. So imagine you are eating Western diet with all the fat stuff and all the fries, and at the same time drinking. You really are creating a very hostile environment in your gut, which is not good news.
Just playing with that one for a minute, everybody seems to have a story. Everybody's got a story of the guy who's, drank 3 bottles of wine a day and had fish and chips and deep fried Mars bars all day of the week, every day for breakfast. And yet he lives to 90 years old. And so if this stuff is so bad for the gut, how are we able to exist?
Very good question. Why? Because, sometimes we as scientists try to separate things and make them simple. So we say, okay, if we change the microbiome, this will happen. However, there is genetical factor. There is your way of life. You are stressed all the time. So it's not just one simple factor. However, this factor, which is the gut microbiome, plays a major role. So even though you may eat everything you want, which is not really very healthy, you may still live till your 90s. Having said that, I don't know how well you are living to 90s. Maybe you don't die, but you still suffering. So I don't know.
Well, I think we've learned so much now, too, about the mind and the mind's role of health. And we're starting to get so much more in depth on what that means. But perhaps the guy who's eating the fish and chips and having a lot of alcohol is also having a really strong community aspect. And he's very happy with those decisions and doesn't stress out about the fact that he's making unhealthy decisions. And
so he's got low stress. He's very happy.
Exactly.
Low stress.
It could be. Now, you mentioned briefly about the leaky gut aspect, and I think, Ruari, this goes back to the part where you said, I just felt clearer, I felt more, I could concentrate better, I had better focus. Alcohol really impacts this gut-brain connection as well, and I think it's through this leaky gut that you were talking about, Dr. Ghannoum, that once we have the leaky gut, maybe we're getting some neuroinflammation, we're having, some gut-brain axis issues, and that's really causing these symptoms of depression, anxiety, even just fogginess. We don't even have to go to the clinical side of things, just brain fogginess and feeling weighted down. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh, definitely. I mean, it's now science is clearly established that there is a bidirectional or two-way communication between our gut and the brain. The brain, we used to think only the brain tell us what to do, but now also our gut and the microorganism in our gut secrete these metabolites or small molecules, which also tell the brain what to do. So both affect each other. But if you think about it, in particular, when you drink alcohol, what happens? What happens is, remember, we are causing damage to our gut lining. So because of this, we'll start to see an increased level of endotoxins that goes in the blood. And these endotoxins, as you know, they are of bacterial origin, and they are, as the name is, toxins. They cause issues. At the same time, it allows the really increased translocation. In other words, some of the bacterial products which should not pass into our blood, by having this damage, we have an increased permeability of the gut lining, allowing all these bad elements to pass through and cause, of course, health issues. And totally, this is referred to leaky gut.
And it sounds like this is happening whether you're a casual drinker or an alcoholic or somewhere in between. It sounds like the alcohol can have this impact even if you're, like we're saying, at a wedding and you have 6 drinks in one night, which would be considered binge drinking, you're going to have this impact.
No doubt about it. I mean, there is one point which we need to remember, which is the good news. Like, even though alcohol, as we mentioned, it causes dysbiosis. Sometimes some alcohol have compounds in it, dietary compounds like polyphenols, that really are helpful, are good stuff. And because of this, I think, of course, I'm with you. We should stop drinking for some time and see the benefits of it. But at the same time, if you take a little bit of alcohol, maybe not more than 1 glass 3 times a week, in a way, you may have an increase of abundance of good microorganisms such as bifidobacterium. Like, studies have shown that having red wine, for example, increase the abundance of this beneficial bacteria, which is good news.
Well, there's two things I wanted to ask there. I'm fairly confident that a lot of the research that says that alcohol is good for you is not actually talking about alcohol. It's talking about, as you say, the ingredients that surround alcohol, because at the end of the day, alcohol is ethanol. And I'm pretty confident there has never, ever, ever, ever been a study that's saying putting ethanol into the human body or an animal body is good for it. Correct?
That's absolutely right. And then we
Excellent.
talk in yeah.
So I just like to draw that line there. Whenever anyone comes and says to me, yeah, but it's good for you, I can go and smack them with that one. Were you talking about the polyphenols, which comes in wine? Now, I'm pretty sure you can get thousands of times more from a normal healthy diet. What other things could you eat or drink other than that don't have ethanol in it that could give you a similar amount?
I mean, this is a very nice question. I don't advocate for anybody to go drinking to get healthy, even little bit.
Good. I'm glad we nailed that one to the ball.
No.
But leave it out there for anyone listening going, oh, so I can still drink red wine.
No, my friend. You have better food. You have, whole food. You have grains. Like, if you like some pistachio, you have some legume, for example, lentils. You can have fish, salmon. Yeah. You are from Scotland and you have very good salmon there. So go after that. Yeah.
So, and thousands of times more, like not a small amount more, lots more times, the ingredients in a good healthy diet. So it kind of eradicates that whole piece around any of it being healthy for you.
This episode is brought to you by drmicrobiome.com, the website of our resident scientist, Dr. Mahmoud Ghannoum, and his new book, Total Gut Balance. Fix your microbiome fast for complete digestive wellness. Dr. Ghannoum has spent over 40 years studying our microbial communities and has now condensed his insights into an entertaining book that dives deep into the fungal colonies in your microbiome, why Candida gets a bad rap, and his advice for a diet plan, complete with recipes, that's happy for your gut based on years of clinical research. He also lays out a handy test to take so you can find out where on the health meter your microbiome is at today. And then he gives you recommendations on how to better balance your gut in 24 hours with supplements, lifestyle, and diet. Total Gut Balance Fix Your Microbiome Fast for complete digestive wellness is now available for pre-order at Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Just simply search Total Gut Balance Book to find it. The book will be shipped and released on December 24th.
One thing I'm really interested in is, I guess, two parts to this question. And apologies if you were going to do this, Andrea, but the first part is, if I'm a listener and I'm thinking, well, could this be because I'm drinking alcohol? What are some of the experiences somebody would have from having leaky gut or problems in their gut due to alcohol?
I mean, one of the first thing is inflammation. And as you know, when you have inflammation, you have pain in your gastrointestinal tract. You may have some, bloating. You may have some various gastrointestinal symptoms that we associate with IBS, for example, which you know very well because you used to suffer from them, are manifested there.
I think what people don't realize too is symptoms of autoimmune disease. So things like rheumatoid arthritis, that is a symptom of leaky gut. We can't have any autoimmune disease without having intestinal permeability. So many times these things pop up and someone will say it came out of nowhere, right? But that's so not true. When we look at their health history, we can very clearly see the delineation of how those things came to be.
Absolutely. So I guess on the flip side of that is what happens when you stop drinking to the gut?
Basically, when you stop drinking, number one, you are giving a chance for good microorganisms to take over instead of the pathogenic one that cause issues and start to break the lining. So to me, once you stop drinking, especially if you have that with a good diet to try to support the beneficial organisms, as well as if you use some probiotic or food that have prebiotics or these fibers, you are going to start rebuilding. It's like when something damaged and then we try to fix it slowly but surely, it will go back to a normal balanced situation. So in a way, there are studies that have been done both in animals, rodents, rats and mice, as well as in humans, which shows that when you stop the damaging effect of alcohol, then you will start to build the beneficial organism. Clearly, you need to help them because you've been suffering with something. We need to start building our gut. My favorite is to do with biofilm or digestive plaque, where it forms in your gut, and that will eliminate our ability to absorb the nutrients in our food. It also starts to break down our gut lining, and then you have the leaky gut. So once you stop alcohol, then you should start having a good diet, try to build it back, and let's do everything we have, probiotic, prebiotic, and take plant proteins, for example, to start rebuild the health health of your microbiota in a way to rebalance and then maintain this nice harmony in the gut.
Brilliant.
So don't use stopping drinking as an excuse to go out and eat cake, is what you're saying. Don't quote unquote reward yourself for stopping drinking by, going down to the bakery and the pizza shop.
Okay, there's actually, I want to come back onto this, but let's talk about sugar. Two bits. First part is, I think we can have a conversation again about how we can make some great improvements to the experience of people coming in for one Neonobia with exactly those tips. So I think we can make some product improvements. So thank you very much there. Just make sure we're introducing a probiotic and bits and pieces like that. So I'll get some more advice from you. The other piece is, I guess, the reason why we have such huge transformations at 1 Year Nobia is the fact that we're not just removing alcohol. We have a MEN system. which is what our whole platform is based on: mind, exercise, nutrition, and do. And in the mind piece, it's all around positive psychology, what went well, gratitude, journaling, all of those bits of pieces that we know are absolute behemoths in helping people think positively, be happy, change their perception of themselves, etc., rewire their brain. The exercise piece is critical. You know, the lymphatic system doesn't have a pump. We need to be exercising in the morning in order to process the detoxing. So that's why we get people to book into a physical challenge like a Spartan or a park run. So exercise is happening. Nutrition, eating right, investigating your diet. What's one diet is right for some person isn't for another. We're not talking about dieting here. We're talking about eating the right foods. And there are obviously some great foods which help with the process of removing alcohol and removing cravings and sleeping better. You know, sleep is a big thing that people go through a process of it going worse because they've used it as a sleep crutch for so long that they then have to retrain themselves to fall asleep in a nice natural way, but they get much more deep sleep once they've gone through that. And that's when they're like, oh my God, I'm sleeping like it's amazing. And the last piece is the do, which is going out and doing these challenges and challenging yourself in other areas. So when you look at the program, it's a whole person program. And when you look at the gut, it's so intrinsically linked with the brain and so intrinsically linked with things like stress, nutrition. Obviously, we're dealing with a lot more and a lot more impact than just removing alcohol.
I tell you something, what you said is absolutely a great way to do it. And why I am saying that, apart from what the belief which what you showed us, is I built a program which is a diet called Total Gut Balance, and it's exactly what you said. It's not only food. It's not only about alcohol reduction. It's not about just eating right. You have to take, as you mentioned, the total person. You have to have the way of life. The lifestyle, in other words, is very important. And I make you laugh. I come from Lebanon, Beirut, and now, believe it or not, I go and do yoga. If my mother heard about that, she will.
Me too.
She will abandon me. But
she's not listening to the podcast.
I hope not. But what I think, it's absolutely, we need to take our few minutes in a day just to relax and meditate, which you mentioned earlier. I think this is very, very important, as well as exercise is critical. You don't have to be a marathon runner. As long as you are exercising in moderation, it's going to help you. And of course, in this day and age, who doesn't have stress? We need to know how to manage it. And what you mentioned, meditation as well as yoga, is a great way to do that. So I love what your program, which you suggested.
Fantastic.
Ruari, can you tell us, if we want to learn more about 1 Year No Beer, sign up for the challenge, how people do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we produce a huge amount of free content. We have a podcast. Check out the Facebook page, 1 Year No Beer, Instagram, 1 Year No Beer. If you want to come and do a challenge, we have a book on Amazon, or you can sign up and join the community. We're all over the world, so over 50,000 members in 90 countries, and you can do that at oneyearnobeer.com. It's one of those things where we just say to anyone, if there's any doubt in your mind, any question, and it's something you feel like doing, then, come and give it a shot. It'll change your life.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And Dr. Ghannoum, I know you have your program that you mentioned. You have a book detailing that's now available for pre-order. Can you talk a little bit about where people can find that?
Yes, the book, which is going to be published in December 24th of this year, just one day before Christmas. Excellent. Where it talks about total gut balance, where you are balancing not only your bacteria, but your fungus, and you can find it. It's already pre-ordered in Amazon. And I tell you, it really shares a lot with what you mentioned. And as well as it will be very helpful if you want to know about some prebiotics or probiotics. If you can visit biomhealth.com, we have a mix of probiotics that not only address your bacteria, but also your fungi.
Great. Thank you so much. We'll link to all of that in the show notes, of course. And if any of the listeners want to hear more on biofilms or sugar, candida, all of those issues that really are impacted by alcohol as well, we have plenty of episodes previous to this one that you can check out. So gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on, and we will talk to you soon.
Thanks for having us on. Thank you.
It's great. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning into the Microbiome Report. Ruari has graciously offered listeners of the show 30% off a 1-year no beer challenge with the code BIO30. To sign up, head to our show notes page at biohmblog.com/category/podcast and click on this episode. You'll find the unique link to the challenge there. And remember, Biohm is spelled BIOHM. Until next time, I'm Andrea Wien.